Welcome to Leadership Kung Fu with your hosts, Sandi and Jennifer Long.
Hello, and welcome to the next edition of Leadership Kung Fu. I'm looking at Sandi and she's laughing at me. I'm trying to start with a new... We've been on vacation, so we're coming back in. We are getting ready for the rest of the year on what we're going to be doing. And so here we are, Leadership Kung Fu. And this episode is, how are you really doing in your leadership? This is all about, it's mid-year. You've been leading all year. It's been an interesting year. How's that going for you? How are you showing up? Have you got the impact? Are you meeting the goals? How's the strategy working? All the things. And so we thought we would take this episode today to look at your practice and your discipline and your self-reflections on what should you be thinking about at mid-year as a leader of an organization, and how can we help you start to think about that in a more meaningful way. Because if you haven't had your mid-year review from your boss, do your own, because we should all be thinking about what are we doing to learn and grow and get better. And so I'm here with Sandi from Toronto, Canada, and Satori Consulting. Hey, Sandi.
Hey, how you doing? I think we should call this episode The Art of the Mid-Year Check-In.
The Art of the Mid-Year Check-In. This is the episode. Welcome to it. And so we will sort of banter about the mid-year review. And so, first of all, mid-year check-ins are really good strategically. So taking the time to sit down over a glass of wine, which we've contemplated, or over your morning coffee, think about, how are you doing? Are you creating the impacts you want? What's going on in your organization? What's going on with you? And how can you do the next 6 months better? 5 months.
Better, more of, less of, all of that sort of thing.
Right.
More meaningful. I think that the whole idea of a mid-year check-in, I think, if you look at the traditional way of performance management, they always typically had a mid-year check-in that were very formal and things like that. I'd like, sort of to blow that up and say, we need to look internally as well as engage with our staff on how we're doing. And so what are some of the things that as a leader, you should be really looking at mid-year, because this is your time to lean into a bit of agility if you need to shift, right?
Right. And time to pivot.
Yeah. Let's pivot. Let's be agile. That's all the words we can throw into this session today. But I think it's a really good, it's time well spent for people to really reflect on what's working, what's not, what are the wins you've had? Are you spending your time on the right things? Do you have the right people on your team? Are you hitting the right metrics that you need to? And if not, what are you going to do about it?
Well, and more importantly, based on the business environment a lot of leaders are in, is how are you doing in your sense making? How are you really doing in creating clarity for your own organization? Because I think leaders are in the mud right now. I think this is a really hard year on so many levels for so many different businesses for a whole host of reasons, that I think one of the critical things leaders are faced with is handling the uncertainty and the complexity of what's really happening in the market and what the impacts have been.
Well, you think about it, we came through a pandemic, right? And that was complex and difficult. But at some point we sort of knew what was happening, and we had a bit of, flatlining to get to the end of it. But right now things are very much up in the air and they change daily. And as you say, it's things that are affecting every industry in different ways, some really highly impacted, some others. And so the strategy that was set, last year in July or even in January really needs to be reviewed to say, in our changing environment, what do we need? What needs to be done differently? And do we need to shift? And do we need to, pivot, as you say?
Yeah. And how effective am I in this, right? So when you turn that mirror in on yourself and you're thinking of, how am I handling this pressure, right? am I leading effectively, right? What is it like to be led by me? And how are people responding to that? How would they respond to that? And are you seeking that feedback in a regular way? Because I think this is a dynamic that requires you, if I'm giving you feedback as a coach, I would say, how often are you getting feedback from your team? What do they need from you? What do they need from you? And are they getting it from you? And if they don't know what they need from you, how are you framing up what you're going to provide?
Right, right. Sort of reminds me of a session we were just doing around your leadership brand, right? Which needs to be, consistent and relevant for everyone. And I think a lot of leaders don't think of themselves as a brand, but you are, right? And so that whole consistency of showing up in the same way. How do people describe your brand? How would you describe your own brand when you're thinking about um, sort of what's working for your team and what does your team need? I think really defining who you are, which aligns to your values as a leader. But in this chaos, that's when things go off the rails and we're not as authentic to our brand because, let's face it, we're in chaos, right? And chaos creates stress and we're not our best selves in stress. And so it's a really good time to say, like, am I showing up as my authentic brand as a leader and giving people what they need? And so your point about checking with your people is a really good tip to say, what are they saying? What are you hearing? And are you showing up consistent and relevant to them?
And have you done the clarification around, um, you know, does my behavior telegraph what my value really is?
Yeah,
What am I
exactly.
saying is important based on how I'm really behaving?
Yeah. And am I saying the things that are important based on what's coming down from above or what's important to our team, right? Am I reacting or
Mm-hmm.
am I being proactive? And
Mm-hmm.
again, mid-year is a really good time to say, whew, how am I showing up?
How am I showing up? Now, how do I need that doing? And if you've been a little reactive, right?
Mhm.
We all behave badly at times. If
Yes.
you know you are like, I'm having more bad days than good. What is it about that?
Mhm.
What's it going to take to turn that around? So really kind of identifying that, and reactiveness is more common now than it has been in a while.
For sure, for sure. I think there's a probably a truism around this time of the year in chaos and when things are really difficult is to get burnout. And
Mm-hmm.
do you know what happens when you're in burnout? And can you recognize the signs of burnout, which
Mm-hmm.
is, stress, maybe drinking too much, or more,
Yeah.
not engaging as much as you have in the past or that you need to be effective. What else might be burnout
Well,
signs?
making decisions that aren't good for you,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
That erode your boundaries, that erode your time, that don't work with you in a good way because you feel compelled to have to.
To
And
do.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And so running yourself into the ground. Part of it is because you don't hold a boundary. You don't say no. You don't like do the things that you would do if you were healthy to say, that doesn't make sense for me to do that right now. And my capacity is here. Give me better clarity. Right.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, it's
self-destructive
good.
decision making.
Yeah, yeah. There's an exercise that you can take. We were talking about a little bit earlier. It's around what's your energy score,
Mm,
and you
say
can
more.
take personal stock in what's your body energy. Are you doing the things that are going to help your physical energy right now? Like, are you taking the time to go to bed early and to take walks and spend time with the family and things that really will help nurture your energy levels, emotional energy, mindful energy, spiritual energy, but really just taking stock as to where you are from an energy level
Mm,
can help you look at what people are receiving at the other end. Because when we're depleted as leaders,
mm,
it doesn't land at the other end as well as in any relationship, in our home life, whatever. When we're depleted,
hmm.
um, it wears thin on others. So really take stock on what your energy level is.
Well, 100%, right? And I think that a lot of people, and some people are really tuned into their own somatics, right?
Mm,
A really good understanding of taking what am I feeling in my body and where,
yeah.
right? Because your body will tell you
Hmm.
all the things. When you're tense, when you meet with these people, your body is telling you, right?
Mhm.
And mid-year is a good time to really kind of sit down and go, how am I feeling? And am I run down? Am I worn out? Are my shoulders tense all the time? Do I not sleep? Like, what is happening there? Because your body's giving you all of the things to tell you and help you to say, take a minute, pay
Mhm.
attention. And um, when you're leading, you really are, it's all about energy. What
Yes.
are you putting your energy toward?
Mhm.
Because that's the thing that matters. And time, that's just, we all have, that's just the guardrails. But when it's an investment of energy, that's where your behavior telegraphs what's really important, because that's where your energy is going, right?
Mhm.
And if it's dispersed because you're trying to handle all the things and creating, that's where lack of focus, lack of priority, stand
Well,
out of it and go, what's more important than something else?
yeah.
Am I doing the due diligence and the critical thinking, right? Because we all have this illusion, I don't have time to do the thing, I have to respond. It's like, that's where bad decisions start,
Yeah. Poor
is
decision making is a outcome of that, for sure, for sure. And
yeah.
as coaches, we use that a lot in terms of, where is it manifesting? Like, where
Mhm.
is the body? And so getting really in tune with your body is a really critical, I'm going to say it's habit, but it's a really good thing to understand, right? Because what do they say? 80% of communication, or 60% of communication, is about body language. And
Mm.
so others see it. So when you're stressed and you think you're hiding it really, really well, likely not, because it's showing up somewhere
Yeah.
in the shortness of the email, in the, whatever it might be.
Yeah. It comes
Uh,
out. Your body is not going to hold
no,
it.
no, no, for sure. Um, Sort of leads into, have you had a mid-year review with your boss? Have you had them with your staff?
Mm.
Um, is it time? Is it one of those things that you don't have time to do because nobody likes to have to do them because they are a bit a time sucker, right? And when we're busy, that's the first thing that goes. Um, but
Yeah.
it really supports that whole accountability feedback loop when you're showing and you're modeling the way, right? This is what you expect of your managers under you to do with their staff, and so
Well,
we
yeah.
can't.
And it's an opportunity for a reset,
Yeah.
which is a good thing. And it's, I mean, this is where opportunity about all this stuff, and you really want to sit down and go through in detail, because I feel that mid-year we just want to go on vacation, and
Yeah.
then you have that moment where you get back and you look at your inbox and you're just right back in it, and it's like you were never gone, and you don't really get the reset you're hoping for. So part of what the message is today is do an intentional reset,
Mhm. Yeah,
right?
and you're right. A vacation is not a reset, as much as we'd like to think it is,
Mm,
because the work doesn't go away. I was coaching somebody earlier, and she was saying, like, "What do you do when I have my downtime? I'm good at compartmentalizing when I'm with my family. I don't think about work, but when I'm just sitting by myself, that's all I think about, and that's not healthy, right?"
yeah.
And so I said, "Well, I use Siri, and Siri reminds me on things to do Monday morning." Uh, but again, it's how much of work is creeping into your personal life. That it is one of those things to think about at mid-year. Am I still as balanced as I need to be effective in all areas of my life, and to show up properly in all areas of my life? I think it is
Yeah.
another thing that you want to be taking stock in.
Where have I let things go, and why did I do it?
Mhm.
And is that something that was a good thing, or is that something that is now in neglect?
Right. And not in judgment,
No.
right? It's
No.
about it is what it is. It's about what you do with it going
Mhm.
forward. And again, a mid-year check-in is a good time to say, got to make a few changes. What are those changes and how will they benefit me and my team, my family, whatever, my partner, if I were to make these tweaks?
Right.
Uh, so I think anytime that you can take an intentional reflection time, and not hide behind the busyness of everything to not do it, I think is a very positive habit for everyone.
Right. Right. Think about, are your people growing under your leadership, or are they
Mm-hmm.
shrinking? And what does that mean, right? Maybe some places they are growing and some places they're shrinking. And what is your responsibility there? What is your, um, is that neglect? Right? Because we were just having a conversation about AI, and that
Yeah.
is such a hot button and such a focus. And does that have all of your attention? And are those things feeling like they're learning and growing, and everybody else is feeling like they're shrinking
Yeah.
because of what that represents and the threat that poses organizationally?
Yeah. And, a flip side to that would be, are you embracing AI in your leadership style to help you be a better leader? Right?
Yes, in fact, I saw terminology that said co-lead. Are
Oh,
you
co-lead with
are
your
you
AI partner.
co-leading with AI? And what does
Ah,
that look like, right?
yeah.
And I think every leader's got different opportunity depending on who they are and what their business is, obviously. But when I first read that thought as a concept, I was like, ooh, how does that feel?
Mm,
And we were talking about AI earlier in the context of your body can't really tell the difference between fear and excitement from a nervous standpoint, nervous system standpoint. And sometimes it's both and, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that whole AI is an interesting one. We have lots of conversations about it. And I think as well, I think there's a couple of things sort of floating around my head right now. One is the organizations and how well they're adopting to it. Are they fearful of it, or is it something that they're embracing?
Hmm.
Because there's going to be a bit of a values of the organization and in some policies around use and things like that. But if you're an organization that embraces this sort of thing, I think there's a lot of uses that can help you as leaders lighten your load a little bit,
Mm.
right? You don't have to do all the heavy lifting. You can co-lead and have your partner do a little bit more of the heavy lifting. Um,
Oh,
and what does that mean to you in terms of capacity and time?
right. Can the AI write the difficult email to whoever?
Absolutely, it can.
Absolutely. Right. There's some interesting uses, and here's a whole side tirade, not even a tirade, sort of a side tangent. I was doing some reading, and what's it really being used for? Like, and I can't remember the article. Maybe it was a McKinsey article or somebody looking at all the businesses going, where's the AI effort and what's it really being used for? And right. So last year it was all about ideation and sort of thought partnering in an interesting way. And this year, the number one use that people are using AI for, therapy.
Oh, see, I was going to get to medical advice,
Oh,
but
medical advice.
yeah,
Right? I would probably think medical advice would be better than therapy, but I'm
yeah,
like,
but
wow,
cheaper than a therapist, so maybe.
cheaper than a therapist. You don't have to, you 24/7, 365,
Mhm.
not judging, like,
Yeah,
so
interesting.
yeah. And I'm sure there's a whole host of downsides with that. As therapists will probably tell you.
I'm sure. I'm sure. But it is a tool that's certainly not going away, right? I was listening to something the other day on the CBC, and they were talking about um, all of businesses that are investing in is it Power AI, like the Mega AI. I can't remember what it's called, but just
Mm.
in AI in general, and trying to be the top AI. They're buying AI firms. They're getting the biggest server farms. They're just
I want the
preparing to
platform.
be
Yeah.
to be the biggest giant in AI, and everybody's in these areas are sort of vying to be the top. So it's not going away, but could it help you in times of in this chaos that we're in? Help you put some guardrails around your strategy and your strategy going forward. Could it help you test your strategy and
It
whether it's the
can.
right strategy?
It can do all the things, right? And um incorporating it, but also what are your hard pressed goals doing for your team? So if you think about, there's a lot of people who are putting out productivity goal jumps and looking at hitting a metric, and by bringing it in, and when you're leading by metric versus leading by learning, I'm curious how that's going, and what would your feedback to yourself about that be in terms of when you think about what's happening to your organization? Are they are they learning? Are they shrinking? Are they what kind of fear are you generating by doing that? Right? Like thinking through those kind of implications, because these are the things that where the pivot would come, right? Maybe it's not about the metric, maybe it's about the degree of accuracy in this process. We want to hit a
Yes.
percentage of accuracy as opposed to a diminished level of productivity
Right. Or
or
behavior
an increased
shift.
level of productivity,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Well, I was telling you before and telling the listeners that you're talking to a client that has 54 metrics on a dashboard.
Mm,
54 metrics. Like my first question is, which one's most important?
that is more than a
Or
deck of cards to look at.
uh, my first thought was that it'd have to be really small font to get it on one page. What
I'm
happened to
like,
the strategy on a page? Um,
I'm like, let's deal these out. Who's got a handful of metrics? Who can win? Right? Like, what? That's way too many metrics.
yeah, yeah. But the messaging right
Mhm.
downstream is everything is important and
Yeah.
nothing's important.
Yeah.
And then the flavor of the day is, well, this one needs attention, and then that one goes up, and then next week it's, oh well, this one needs attention. So everybody's swinging back and forth, and not really just focusing on the most important things that need to get done.
Yeah. And so let's just go back to the, in your review of yourself, is your strategy solving the problem you need to solve? And
Yeah,
are you being effective with that? Because I think when we can get carried away by the shiny things and I
yeah.
mean, holy moly.
Yes. But, Jen, I think that the question is, have you defined what it is, the problem that you need to solve?
Have you found the problem?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because often we are active, but we're active because we need to be active. And I
Right.
think 54 metrics is just a sign of activity, like gerbils on a wheel activity.
So your question as a leader is, how good are you at driving focus?
Yeah.
How good are you at driving focus? Better yet, how good are you at saying no?
Hmm.
Because that helps you drive focus. And both of those questions I think are real and relevant.
Yes.
And
Yes.
be honest and be brutally honest about how you answer those.
Yes.
What have you said yes to that you regret so far this year?
Hmm.
And how are
And
you
I
going to
think,
fix it?
how are you going to fix it? And what was the downstream implications to saying yes to something that you should have said no to? Right? Because as a leader, everything you're saying yes to does have an implication across your teams.
Yeah.
And so that whole notion of, where am I today? Where do we need to get to? What do I need to do in order to get there? And do I need to continue doing everything that I'm doing right now? Is it serving everybody? Right? Is
Right.
there a shortcut? Is there an AI way of getting there that might be more efficient?
Can AI write the letter that says no? Yes, it
Yeah.
can. um, what are you learning? Right? I think what have you actually learned in the last 6 months?
Mhm.
Where are the capital lessons and how are you applying that learning? I think those are some worthwhile reflections on your own performance as a leader.
Yeah.
What are
And when you
the
ask that question, Jen, you're not talking about, book learning, are you?
No, I'm talking about lessons learned in how you've performed so far.
Yeah.
Failed projects, missed deadlines, missed like where have the failures come that you needed to learn from, right? What are those lessons?
Mhm.
What have you taken from the successes? What have you taken from what you've done well?
Yeah.
What are those lessons?
Yeah.
Because that's the stuff that's going to make your decision making stronger going forward. And
Mhm.
both of those require applications in the next 6 months.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing, I was always a big proponent of, postmortems, right? What did we learn? What can we do better? How does it, help us be more efficient next time? All that sort of stuff. But in our realities, I think in our workplaces now, we don't allow time to take a breath and to take that learning, right? So if you're not doing it, on the daily, on the project basis, every month, and sort of taking stock and applying it back, at least do it in the mid-year. Do it now and do it in January,
Right.
because the learning is so great. If we're not taking it and applying it back,
welcome to the same mistakes next year.
Yeah.
And better yet, when you look down at the next 6 months, where are you going to fail? And how is it going to fail? And what is failure going to look like if you fail? And then start to think about planning for that. Right? How do you mitigate it?
Yeah.
And I think being proactive is as useful. So, while I think start with the what have I learned so far? What are the capital lessons I need to bring with me? What are the what's a little bit of the pain that I need to just live in for a minute to remember what was that and what can I take from that? What same with your success, but also in the next what are those lessons and what do they mean for the next 6?
Yeah.
And when you look at the projects and things on your plate and the things you've said yes to, are they still the things you need to say yes to based on what you've learned? And imagine that those things that you've said yes to are not going to go well. Imagine them. Just what will drive it? And how can you think through more proactively in the next 6 on having those conversations as you move through versus retroactive after the fact?
Yes. Yeah. I was just talking to somebody before I was on the phone with you, and the same sort of conversation. She was saying, I imagine everything's going to go well. And I said, but I think I want you to take some time to say what happens if it doesn't.
Yeah.
Right. I know you don't want to stay time in the negative, but you need to look at risk as well as opportunity. Right. And they are opposite sides of the same coin. And it's really important.
Yeah. And this whole I've got to move fast kind of thing, you cannot move fast without taking the time to think more critically. And are you allowing your team, right? Because this is where you look at your own behavior patterns and what are you really showing up as what's important. And are you creating the space for them to spend, because it doesn't take that long, right?
No.
It takes 45 minutes to work through something at that level. And I'll give you an example. I've worked half a day with a team, and they were having big drama about the feds are going to claw back. Those is going to come in and claw back things they've already handed out. What do we do? What does that look like? And did it for an hour, what it's going to look like. And then the end of that exercise, really looking at where are the net negatives, where are some things that are actually net positive, where are the things that are net neutral. And when we color code that in, if this thing is going to happen, is it a good thing or a bad thing?
Right.
And then what's driving that thing, and how are we going to help? What are we watching for? And how are we leaning in the drivers that are going to send it in the direction we want it to go?
Exactly.
And 1 hour. And so these sorts of learnings and planning and this kind
Proactiveness.
of, if you don't have this skill set, this would be your opportunity to say, that's on my growth chart, on my development plan. What am I doing to get better thinking around how I'm making decisions and making better decisions in such a crazy and volatile environment? Because if I've got better decision-making rigor as I'm standing in these moments of, okay, we're having a tariff, of, okay, we're not having a tariff, of, okay, right? Whatever it is, I can sit down and think it through at a level that I can make a better decision than I could have if I'm just responding based on my experience, which is as leaders, you guys lean way too hard in.
Yes. Yeah. And what a beautiful skill to teach your staff, the people below you, right? If you can do that well, that is just something that they don't teach well in business school. It's often it's a bit of a learned skill, but it's something that you need to really do. Back on the AI track, it can help you.
It can help you. It can help you.
Absolutely.
Another thing you might want to really think about is, why do you want to be a leader right now?
Wouldn't it be easier?
If you're just clocking in, right? what is important about leading right now?
Yeah.
And I think that takes a little bit of a reframe in your brain to say, what is it? Do I want to lead right now? Because I think a lot of leaders don't, and they're showing up like that.
Yep.
So if you're standing in that title and you're standing in that role, or maybe you don't have a title or a role, but you can see something. Why now? Why you? Why now? And what is that? What is that for you? So how, in answering that question, what goals are you setting for yourself?
Yeah.
And I think that's a growth trajectory, right? Your own development plan, your own learning curve, because if you can see what it is you need and why now and what you can offer now, how is that going to help you get to what are you going to bring? What's the value? How does that lead into what you say yes to, what you say no to? All those things.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So, I think, I don't know, anything else on mid-year check-ins? A really positive thing to do.
Yeah, it's a really good thing. And I would say if you're not reading, get a mentor. If you're not mentoring, read some books outside of where you are right now. Expand your thinking into other areas, because I think in this difficult time, your exposure to other things helps you make sense of stuff that you wouldn't necessarily normally connect dots on. And I think that has a stabilizing effect. And if your effort on yourself creates a stabilizing, right, the whole mid-year reset restabilizes you, and you can show up a little more calm, cool, collected, together, focused, and determined, the impact that has on the people you lead is critical, immense. It's fantastic. This is why you want to have your own mid-year review.
Yes. Yeah. So give yourself some space and grace and we always say, don't stand in judgment, but stand in judgment of yourself, right? Really be a critical eye to inward on who you are and how you've been and what you need to do differently. And are you thriving or surviving? Like, what is it for you? And then what are those signs for burnout, and how are you showing up for others? Leading with intent. And do you need to shift, right? It's okay to change course.
Right. Demonstrate what it looks like to learn in action.
Yeah.
It's never going to hurt.
Take the time.
So if you need help, get it.
Yeah, that's right.
And don't just ask AI. Okay. AI is not the answer to everything, damn it. All right. Very good. Well, I hope this has been helpful for you and a reminder to you. And listen, spend an hour, spend 30 minutes, take a day, go to the mountains, have a hike, think about it. Take as much time as you need, do it.
Excellent.
And we'll talk to you in the next episode. Tell us what you thought. Leave your comments.
Please.
Leave your comments. I'm pointing to below, but just not saying it.
Yes. And if you want to hear us talk about anything in particular, please let us know in the comments, and we're happy to spin up a podcast on that. But it's mid-year. Happy summer, everyone. And we look forward to talking to you on the next episode.
Enjoy the heat. Talk soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. You can check out Sandy's website at satoriconsultinginc.ca. That's SATORI Consulting inc.ca. And you can check out Jen's website at accountabilityatwork.com. If you like what you hear, let us know by leaving a review on your favorite listening platform. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.